Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of JRPG Journal. My name is Taylor Hoyt, and today we're talking about one of my all-time favorite games, the original Ni no Kuni, and I'm super excited that it's getting a remaster later this year. And joining me to talk about this is Virgil from JRPG Central. Virgil, thanks for coming on to talk about this game.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, we've kind of got to know each other a little bit over E3, making essentially kind of the same video, which was really fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good E3. Like real quick, I know like we both kind of saw E3. So like, what has you most excited JRPG wise coming out of E3?
Man, I mean the obvious is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
Like I went from not really being too excited for that game to the more I see it, the better it actually ends up looking. I don't know how the whole episode thing is going to work out, but I'm just cool. I'm just excited for the Midgar part, honestly. Like that alone is going to be super cool. But then the collection of Mana stuff, like Trials of Mana, just there was a whole lot of really awesome announcements.
Yeah, like Trials of Mana came out of nowhere. You know what's really, really funny? So I'm sure you have something like this too, but I have this list of like potential videos to make. And one of them was JRPGs that never left Japan, or JRPGs we'll never get, or we'll probably never get, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And two of them were Trials of Mana and Phantasy Star Online 2. I'm like, oh, we're never going to get those. And then we got both of them. Like, wow, that's hilarious. But speaking of E3, we got announcement that Ni no Kuni Remastered is coming, which I feel like that's like late. Usually you do the remaster leading up to the sequel, but like, I guess it's better late than never.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I thought that was very strange.
But yeah, I mean, it's coming everywhere, which is cool because I don't know what the sales for that was. I mean, it got a greatest hits release, so it must have done pretty well. But now, like a whole new audience, like especially Switch, like anything, I feel like anything that comes out on Switch just sells really well. So
Yeah.
So what do you remember about this game, like leading up to the release? Because I remember there were like screenshots and like little videos coming out of TGS, and it was like, oh my god, a JRPG with like Studio Ghibli graphics, like this is insane.
Yeah, I remember that. That was really the biggest selling point for me was the art style, at least, leading up to it. And then I remember looking into it and, finding out about the DS version and the fact that we were getting like a PS3 version or port or remake or whatever you want to call it of a DS game, I thought was super fascinating. And,
Yeah, have you had a chance to look at? You said you were looking it up. Have you seen like big chunks of gameplay of the DS version?
a little bit, yeah. It's funny, man. You play like the PS3 version, and the spells in the game have those designs, and they're really useless in the PS3 version. You don't really use them in any way, but in the it's an interesting carryover from the DS version. Like how you had to draw out the spells.
Yeah, because I think if I remember right, you drew them on the bottom screen, right? Is that kind of how it worked? And they have that on the and the Wizard, if you got like the super collector's edition that came with the book and it has all that stuff, which was kind of fun.
My biggest regret.
I mean,
I was not getting that.
It was. I remember there was a big hubbub about it because they all got delayed for like 2 weeks because of the whoever the people that does their shipping or whatever, their fulfillment, like screwed it all up, and I think they were like 2 weeks late or something like that, which was kind of annoying.
That sucks.
Yeah, but hey, it got there. So.
Yeah.
But so when it actually like came out, like were you there like day one? Were you like diving in, getting all into it?
Yeah, man, I had it pre-ordered. I even bought like the hard book collector's edition guide thing. Like, I'm not big on guides except when it comes to certain JRPGs. Like, growing up, I had a ton of guides for those games. Just because, like, granted, I didn't grow up pre-internet, but like, technically the internet was a thing, but it wasn't what it is now,
Yeah.
So that's where I got all my information for like, oh, what's the best weapons to get? What's the best, And so I kind of got to go back in time and just kind of live out that whole experience with that game. And it was really fun, man.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I'm right with you. I usually don't buy strategy guides because you can just go on GameFAQs or whatever and everything you need, or somebody's got a video about it. But I think there is something like cool about like having the book open while you're playing. Like it's like a totally different experience than just like, all right, let me YouTube, how do I do this? Like you're right, it's like reliving the old ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And here's what the thing I always say in context when talking about Ni no Kuni, like that was such a weird time for JRPGs because it was like Final Fantasy 13, people were really upset about that, and then a lot of the traditional franchises weren't getting sequels, or they were on like PSP or DS or something like that. So we really did not get that many. And so my like how I remember it is like, oh, it was like the first great classic style JRPG. Like, were you kind of in a similar mindset? Like PS3 was starved for JRPGs of this quality.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I remember when I first started it, the first moment you got out on the overworld, it just blew me away. I was like, this is an HD old style JRPG. Like, I'm a little guy on an overworld. There's this beautiful music. Like, what is this? We don't get this anymore. And it instantly blew me away just from the get go. And then obviously the rest of the game was amazing. But yeah, I totally felt the same way.
Yeah, that is so funny because like that was like such a. I wonder if that was like a constraint of the time because it's like, oh, we can't make like a fully realized open world, so let's do the big guys with the little cities or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was fun to see them still do that because like Tails was kind of doing that, but then they started to get away with that from that with like Zillia and stuff. So even in Ni no Kuni 2, they still do that, which is neat. Although they did the chibi characters on the world map, which I didn't really like. But
Yeah. I thought that was odd. Like, because in the first game, it's everyone's a little guy, but it's kind of proportionate. Like, you walk up to the city and you're only slightly bigger than like the door on the city. Obviously, the rest of the city is kind of smaller, but when you go to Ni no Kuni 2, it's like they're actually bigger. Like, they're bigger chibi characters for some reason.
yeah, I almost wonder because that the in 2 that you have those large scale battles and it kind of keeps that same style from the world map to that. So I'm wondering if they
Yeah.
were trying to do some consistency or something like that. But yeah, that was kind of a bummer. But yeah, I want to mention or touch on something you said with the music because not only did they copy the Studio Ghibli art style, they basically worked with them because Ghibli did some of the cutscenes, but they also had Joe Hisaishi who does almost all the soundtracks for the Studio Ghibli movies. So were you big into like the Ghibli movies at all? Like, have you watched a lot of those leading up to that?
I was like, I would say not like the not a super fan of them. I'm not one of the people who've seen like every one, but I had memories of like My Neighbor Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service was my favorite as a kid. And my girlfriend actually she's like a super fan of it, and she's been trying to get me to go through like every single one. And I
Nice.
love them. I like recently I watched the Cat Returns, which is a really weird one. Like, that's one that isn't even, you wouldn't even really think it's a Ghibli movie just looking at it. But I think it's a really underrated one. But yeah, the music, it's so good. It's so emblematic of his other works, and yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I would venture to say it's one of my favorite like soundtracks for a game. Period. Definitely of JRPGs is up in that top 5. Like I always say, it's like pick a Persona and then Chrono Cross, Ni no Kuni, and then maybe like Final Fantasy 8 and a Nier game or something like that. But I remember listening to an interview and he said that like it was super easy to like put it all together. Like he put this all together like really really quick because I'm sure like writing game music has probably got to be a little different than movie music because it has to loop,
Yeah.
like it has to end and then restart. So you probably have to think about that in a different way. But
On that too, before we move on, I
yeah,
think I love the soundtrack. I think it's amazing. I think that part of it shows specifically in the battle theme. Like, a JRPG battle theme is such a important thing. Like, it's a very important aspect to get right. And that's probably like one of the few tracks that I think really suffers just because like a JRPG battle track has to get good in like 5 seconds max.
yeah, yep.
And that one really doesn't. Final Fantasy 13 was the same way. It's an amazing track, but there's like 20 seconds of buildup. So you only hear that 20 seconds every time you get into a battle.
Yeah, put that next to like the Persona 5 one where it's just like I'm almost immediately it's hype, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so let's talk about the combat a little bit. It's like almost a Pokemon game in a way because like you capture the creatures, you can evolve them, but then like you can also fight, which obviously you can't do in Pokemon. So like
Right.
What were you trying to like catch them all, or did you like have a small handful that you just played the whole game with, or how did you kind of do that?
I definitely didn't try to catch them all. The guide really helped with that, like being able to go through and look at all the ones in a specific area. And honestly, I kind of went by like which one had one the coolest look,
Sure,
and
yeah.
then the coolest name, like the funniest, like the punniest name, basically.
Yeah.
Like so many of them were different puns, and I would pretty much go by that. And it's really weird, man. Like, I know a lot of people don't like the battle system or that part of it. Like, I have a bunch of friends who couldn't get into it for that reason. And it starts off really slow. It really does. But once you start to, they don't call it evolve, but basically once you start to evolve your familiars,
Hmm.
it really opens up and it gets really good, like the combat does. But I totally get people's apprehension to how it starts.
Oh my gosh, that first battle is like such a slog where it's just Oliver and he's like whacking things with a stick. Is like, oh my god, kill me. This is so boring.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, you're right. Like it gets. I really like the boss battles because there's those moments where like he's like they're like winding up a super attack and you kind of have to time your block at just the right
Yeah.
moment, which is like a little like easy to like anticipate, but I don't know. I think there's something fun about that, like as opposed to just like let's just hack away and use our powerful moves. But there's like you have to be a little thoughtful in a way, you know?
Yeah. And there were some times where like the all out attack or all out defense, there would be a delay. So you'd if you weren't fast enough, sometimes you'd kind of have to like read the enemy and read the boss for when he was about to even start the animation. Because later on, they do it so fast that if you almost don't predict it, you won't defend in time.
That's true, yeah. Because like there's like a because you'll hold your block. There's like a little ticker if I remember right. Like there's a little
Yeah.
circle that'll like go away. Like you have a certain amount of time that you're blocking for. It's not like you block right away and you just have to keep holding it. Yeah, it was definitely hard. I remember the hardest bosses were those like dark wizard fights where you're like in the little dark clouded area. Do you remember those? Or
Uh, that sounds vaguely familiar. It's been a
yeah,
while, so.
yeah, I know it's been a while. I'm almost picturing the main bad guy Shadar compared to like the like what those guys actually looked like. I just remember like because you would fight like the one I remember is the blonde girl's dad gets corrupted and then like you have to
Oh,
fight
yeah, yeah, yeah.
his
Okay,
corruption
yeah.
or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, those were tough.
for sure. Um, yeah, let's talk about the story a little bit. I mean, like talk about a heart wrench like right at the beginning. This is like full spoilers by
Yeah.
the way. If anybody doesn't want to play if they want to play the remaster and they haven't played it for some reason, like maybe cut out now or skip like 10 minutes or something like that cuz yeah, I want to full on spoil this, but yeah, this definitely does not it starts all happy, yeah, we're in like this 40s town and everybody's happy jolly and then yeah,
Boom.
and then his mom dies.
Yeah. Like it's a story, you know, when you compare it to some other JRPGs, obviously there are other sad JRPGs, but it's a really heart-wrenching story and one that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. Like I'm sure a lot of people have lost a loved one and would try to do what Oliver is doing and in trying to get them back, you know, if they could. And so just from that angle, I found it to be a really touching story.
Well, and then it helps you connect with him right away because there's I think that's like sometimes the thing that games when they're writing stories they struggle with most is like how do you connect with the character? How do you make the player care? But like
Yeah.
for him to just be this innocent boy, oh, he's making a car with his friend and they're just doing whatever. To then like his mom dying, he's like, oh my god, like what?
Yeah.
And then his little doll comes to life. I don't know. I thought that was pretty neat. And then the whole aspect of like if there's somebody in your world there is like a clone of them in the other world or there's like they have a link with this other person in like Mr. Drippy's world or whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of a cool aspect like with the blonde girl and her dad are like merchants in that commerce town or whatever and then they're like neighbors in like the real world. I don't know, I thought that whole
Yeah.
aspect was kind of neat.
I love that aspect in a bunch of different media. Like, I haven't watched it in a long time because of Brotherhood, but in the original FMA had that, and specifically in like the movie where like there were, you know, parallels for each character in the other. I don't know if you've watched Full Metal Alchemist or anyone listening has, but the original one that is. But there were like parallel characters for each character in the main story, and they really went into it in the movie. But I like that in any media. I really like that. I don't know, that idea.
Oh, for sure. And then the part that is heart wrenching is when you find out that his mom doesn't have a other worlds version, because that is the other world person. It's the same person or whatever. Yeah. Like, that was heartbreaking just to know that he couldn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's I can't wait to replay this. Like, I almost went and replayed the PS3 version, and now I'm glad I waited, because the remaster looks really good.
It does. Like, I tweeted this and I'm like, yay, and now the last reason to ever keep my PS3 is now I can just throw it in the garbage. Yay.
Yeah.
Because, like, I remember people were saying, like, they say, like, oh, the UI of, you know, the PS4 could be better. It's like, go boot up your PS3. It's like a nightmare by comparison. Like, yeah. The PlayStation store in particular is just so slow.
The store is unusable. Like, I get it. I'm sure they think I'm sure they're thinking, like, who really uses a PS3 still? But someone does. Someone tries to use that store and they hate it. Like, yep. It's awful. It's unusable. It really is.
You know what's really funny? I don't know if you remember this, but like when the PlayStation 3 first launched, they didn't even have like an app. It was literally they kicked you to a web page on PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
So you're literally browsing a web page with your controller. I'm like, oh, this is awful.
I would almost rather take that, because I'm sure it was faster at least. Because what they did is they just applied, like, basically the PS4 store, they just applied it to the PS3. And it just doesn't work, like, at all. It's so bad. Yeah. Now the XMB and the actual, like, UI, I know a lot of people don't like it. I kind of love it. Like, having a PSP and a PS3, they both kind of worked in tandem really well. Like, if you knew one, you knew the other.
Sure.
I don't know.
You know where Sony really hit gold, and I can't believe they're not still using this, is the bubbles on PS Vita. I mean, does it really get any better than that?
Yeah, man. Just even, man, I'm like hacking my Vita right now, and I'm like, I was looking for ways to make the bubbles better, and there's really just no way. You just have these icons just everywhere on your screen.
What kind of stuff are you doing with it, or what are you how are you hacking it?
I'm basically, one really cool thing you can do. This is totally an aside, but you can, you know how on the Vita PS1 games and PSP games have like generic bubbles, like they don't look good at all when you launch it. Like the live area screen looks bad. Yeah,
it's just the basic box art, and then it's I know what you mean.
Well, you can like customize both the bubble icon and the live screen pictures, and make it look like a proper actual Vita game on there.
Oh, that's neat.
Really, really good. I'll have to show you sometime. Like, I have screenshots on my computer of it, but.
Oh yeah, definitely send me those. That'd be cool. Yeah, so let's I'm trying to think of what else was like interesting or like cool about it, because it's like, to me, again, it has that classic feel. Like, I remember getting the dragon was like, yes, we have the airship now. Like, we can go anywhere, and it's not like you like literally you could pretty much land anywhere with that thing.
Well, we got to talk about Drippy.
Oh, sure, yeah, Mr. Drippy.
He's a character who I hear someone say, "Oh, I hated Drippy. He was so annoying," and I'm like, "How? What are you talking about? He's the best." Like, I don't know how you felt about him, but I adored him.
Oh no, he's awesome. Like, he's got that Welsh accent, and he has all these like jokes. Like, oh my, the way he says things are like just the best. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? He's the High Fairy Lord of the Fairies. Is that what it was?
Something like that. Yeah.
Like, every time he said it, it just made me smile. He was so great.
Yeah. Flippin' hell, man. Like, I can't even like begin to like remember what he says, but there's like when you first go to Ding Dong Dell and you're trying to get the the motivation so the guy will open the door, he's like, he'll be right as rain or something, and then he has like all these weird puns, and like, oh my gosh, like
he ends a bunch of sentences with like "in it."
Yeah, in it. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, he's great. Like, I couldn't even tell you the guy's name in Ni no Kuni 2. The guy in Ni no Kuni 2 is like so much worse, or he's like, Mr. Drippy is just like a million times better.
I made this pretty terrible meme that was like, you versus the guy she tells you not to worry about, and it was that abomination from Ni no Kuni 2 and then Drippy.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because I did something similar. It was the meme where like if you don't love me at my blank, then you don't deserve me at my blank. I did
Love
that, and it was that and Lisa Simpson.
Yeah.
Because they look
That's the
pretty
other thing.
similar.
You can't unsee that once you see it.
Yep. That is funny.
Real quick,
yeah.
how did you feel, without going super into it, because I know this is about Ni no Kuni 1.
Yeah.
How did you feel about 2?
It was like I put a lot of time into it and I had fun with it, but like I loved the first one so much, so my expectations were like ridiculously high, and it was not, to me, it was not as good. The combat was better. It was way too easy, I felt like. And then I really didn't like how much of an emphasis they put on the town building stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I ended up dumping a lot of time into it because I was trying to go for the platinum, but yeah, that recruiting all the characters and trying to manage, like, oh my god, it felt like a mobile game at some point, you know?
Yeah. Well, for me, the story was just so, like, you couldn't even compare it. It was just so, like, there were so many characters who I felt like I didn't get to know at all, who, like, they were introduced, and you know, you talked to them a couple times, and then that was it. Their entire arc was, oh, I met you and we went through this whole thing together, but we never really talked or developed, or I don't know. I kind of have a chip on my shoulder about that game because, like you, I love the first one so much. And when the second one was announced, I was so excited, just because that was a game where, like, I didn't know if it was going to get a sequel.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And funny story, actually, I was at PSX when they announced it.
Oh, really? So was I. That's funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Were you? Did you go to the Kind of Funny party thing?
No, I don't think so. I remember that being a disaster. I heard that like they had too many people show up or something.
Oh, dude. Okay, pin in that, because I have got to talk to you about that.
Okay.
Just real shortly.
Yeah.
But funny thing, obviously, I was in the crowd during it, and I, right before they announced it, had like looked back. I noticed the teleprompter, and so I looked back and was watching that with my friend, and then Ni no Kuni 2 popped up, and I like poked my friend. I was like, dude, he's gonna announce Ni no Kuni 2. So technically, like, I knew it before anyone else in the room knew
That's
it,
awesome.
unless they were watching a teleprompter. But on the Kind of Funny thing, that's so funny that you said you heard it was a disaster, because me and my friend Kyle left a panel early to get in line early for it. And I guess it was the first 50 or 100 people got like a wristband and like got to go in. And like, I guess for some people, we got to hang out like in the place. And during the whole hangout, we saw a line that I guess people just came through and got an autograph and then left. Like, I got to hang out. My friend literally went to the bathroom, and then Greg, Tim, Colin all went and like peed in stalls next to him, and we're like talking. Like, I bumped into Alexa Ray Correa, who I love.
Nice.
Marty Sleva when he was there. Like, it was kind of a disaster because it was an open bar, and so I got way too plastered.
Nice. I mean, that's what you do at an open bar, you know?
Yeah, I remember just walking up to Marty, dude. Just walking up to Marty, touching his sweater, and being like, "You have a nice sweater," because I was just completely drunk. And then afterwards, I'm like, "That's so not cool." Just walking up to a stranger and touching him.
Do you remember what his reaction was? Was he like, "Dude, don't do that," or what did he?
He seemed pretty cool about it. He was like, "Oh, thanks, man."
That's
but I'm pretty
awesome.
sure internally he was like, "Please go away." But it was awesome, man.
That is an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Okay. I don't even know how to reel back from that,
Right.
but okay. Here's something I do want to mention, because I don't think people that I'm wondering if people picked up on this. So at the game is leading up to the fight with Shadar, right? Like you get the little glimpses of the White Witch and her council, but everything is leading up to Shadar, and then you go and you fight him. And then it feels like there is this like tacked on like extra 5 hours that they're just like, oh, we need to make it longer for the PS3 version, so let's add zombies and let's add a final dungeon. Like, did you get a sense that they kind of tacked on the end of the game?
I didn't really. Kind of refresh me more on that, because that, like I said, been a while. It sounds kind of familiar. Like,
so what happens is you go to Shadar's castle, and it's like twisty and turny, and then you beat him, and then you get like a Studio Ghibli like animated cutscene. And then after that, the White Witch is like, oh, just kidding, there's more. And then like Ding Dong Dell is like infested with zombies. And then you have to get somebody has like an airship, or you hop on the dragon or something like that, and then there's like one final dungeon, and you go to her dungeon. It's like all white and pristine, and then you fight the White Witch, and there's like I think there's like 2 or 3 battles. Like I have a vision in my head, or a thought in my head where it's like you're in space almost, and there's like crazy stuff happening. Like I remember that final battle was really nuts. But
yeah, I remember the last castle, but I guess I don't remember the one before.
Okay. Yeah, it reminded me of like a Castlevania style castle. It was like all dark and like, trying to be spooky or whatever. Because if I remember right, because my buddy who helped me play the PS3 version had the DS version, and the game ends with Shadar in the DS version.
Really?
Yeah, and so I think that's why the game's called Wrath of the White Witch, because I don't even think she's in the DS version, if I remember right. So yeah,
that would make sense. So it was almost like a Twilight Princess, like Zant Ganondorf type thing, where like there was 2.
Yeah.
I mean, spoilers for Twilight Princess, I guess. Kind of, not really.
That's an old. I feel like if the game has been out in like the last year, like don't spoil it. But if it's like over like 3 or 5 years old, like I feel like all bets are off, because like we need to talk about it in some capacity. Yeah.
My only caveat to that, I like on Twitter, this whole Final Fantasy VII spoiler thing. Discussion is becoming a thing, and like I would never hold back. Like I would never not make a tweet joking about Aerith dying just because like it's a spoiler. But I saw one tweet where someone just threw it in at the end of like a normal tweet. It was like, oh, LOL, by the way, Aerith dies. And I was like, I mean, that's kind of just, at that point you're trying to spoil it for someone,
right? And
I would never try to spoil it for someone, but I'm not gonna like censor myself just because you haven't played this old game. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Totally. Like, because I'm sure there's a lot of discussion, like, oh, how is she gonna die the same way? Like, is she even gonna die? Like, I feel like she has to, because like the end of the game is pretty like pivotal in her dying or whatever.
People are going to lose their minds if she doesn't die.
Yeah, seriously. The one thing I'm wondering is, so there's like a little Easter egg. Like if you go to Midgar on like the 2nd or 3rd disc and you go back to the church, she like shows up for a second and then disappears. So I wonder if they're gonna do something like that, like where her ghost is gonna be walking around or whatever.
I hope so, man. There's so many. Did you see on Twitter where in 7th Heaven there's like a picture of like the PS1 pre-rendered background of that area?
What? That is what? Wow. Okay, I gotta look that up.
I know where it's at. I'll show you right now, dude. This blew my mind, and I was like, this really makes me kind of hopeful for them to be really faithful and like,
that's incredible. Wow.
I gotta show you this. I was like, what?
No, that's really cool. Like, and by the way, for people that are listening, like, and you're a big Final Fantasy guy, you should check out Virgil's Final Fantasy VIII Remastered video, because I remember when I looked at that, I was like, oh my god, they like did some work, because I saw the video and I didn't think about it, but when you like put it side by side, it is insane how much work they put into making the remaster look better.
Yeah, and I don't think, unless it's like Blue Point, we don't really often hear about who does it. But the people who did it, I'm trying to think, I saw who did it, and they did some other stuff that was actually really, really quality. I don't remember who it was, but here, I got this link for you. I'll send this over. You got to see this.
Okay, cool.
At first, I thought this was fake. I was like, what? This can't be real.
But it is. Cool.
But the people who are doing the Final Fantasy VIII remaster have done some pretty good work in the past, I believe. So that makes me kind of hopeful for it.
That's good. Yeah. Well, so you were talking about, let's saying like, oh, for the Ni no Kuni remaster, you're like excited to get back into that, because now it's going to run at 60 frames at 1080. I think it might even go up to 4K 30 on PS4 Pro or something like that. So that's the thing I did like about Ni no Kuni too, is that they bumped the resolution and the frame rate. I was kind of shocked that they were able to bump the frame rate, but I think that game's I think people are gonna play that and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than 2. At least I hope so. That is my hope, because like there's a lot of people on our Discord that they're like, oh, I've never played it, I didn't have a PS3, or I just never went back, and I'm really hoping, especially if you're like an old school fan like us, that you go back and play it, because it's man, it's like one of the greats. Especially even if you play it on Switch, like it's gonna come out on Switch and it's not gonna have the frame rate and visual boost, but still, like however you can get your hands on it, like enjoy it for sure.
Well, it'd be kind of a cool full circle thing that it would be back on a handheld slash console hybrid, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, since it started on one, that's a good point.
They would not do this because it would require some effort, but if they could make it to where you could like draw the spells
Ooh,
touchscreen, that would be kind of neat.
that would be neat, because they're like, if I remember right, the you do that practically in the game with like for like puzzles and stuff. If I remember right, like like you move something or you can push something, or I forget what the different spells are. That's something I have no memory of, is how the spells work. But yeah, that would be kind of a neat way to do that. Yeah, I'm trying to think if is there anything else that we have not touched on as far as and we got all the good story bits. We got we were talking about the White Witch stuff. I think the other thing about that makes me feel like it's an add-on is because usually, I mean, like throughout the game you have the hand-drawn Studio Ghibli cutscenes, but the game does not end on one. I think it ends on Oliver flying on his broomstick to his house or something, and it's not a hand-animated thing. So that's what makes me feel like
that makes sense.
Yeah, that they kind of added that. But
that was the other thing about too. I feel like, I mean, one kind of suffered from it a little bit, like. The fully animated cutscenes are kind of just sprinkled throughout the first game. They're really heavy in the front, and then they kind of, you don't see them as much throughout the game. But two, I thought, was even worse. I feel like there were just a handful, literally throughout the entire game.
Yeah, that one. The other thing that was weird about two is the voice acting was like way cut back, because it would be weird. There'd be like, you'd be in the middle of like a cutscene, and the guy's voice acted, and then he just stops having like audio. I'm like, what happened?
Dude, and not even in like a smart way of like, oh, it's a different scene now, or oh, it's a different character talking. Literally, you'd be reading his conversation, or you'd be hearing it and reading, and then you'd go to the next page and he would just stop. I thought my game was broken at one point. No joke.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
And then I made a comparison on Twitter of like putting up Octopath Traveler and Ni no Kuni 2, and I'm like, one of these games is fully voice acted and one of them isn't. Which one, like, would you suspect would have the full voice acting? Which one would be weirder if it didn't have it?
Yeah, you'd think it would be, Octopath Traveler would not have it, but
yeah, and it does. It has like 100% basically full voice acting, and it's great, but yeah, it's just weird. It's so weird. I assume that was like a budget thing.
Yeah, I wonder, because like, I mean, it obviously is like a big game. There's a lot in it, so yeah, maybe they just kind of ran out of money as far as voice acting goes.
Japanese had, like, I wonder if it's to where like the Japanese had more voice acting, or if it's equal amounts of voice acting, so it was a budget on the original game, or if it was a budget issue on like the localization. I don't know.
That is always a bizarre thing to me, because sometimes there will be JRPGs where like it's fully voice acted in Japan, but then we get it and they don't do any, and then like with Dragon Quest it was backwards. Like the Japanese original didn't have any, and then they fully voiced when they released it in English. So I don't understand how it happens and when it happens and why it happens. It seems so random.
Yeah, and the Dragon Quest 11, that when I first heard that, I was like, what? Like, obviously it's a different culture, different expectations, and with them, like, their menus too were this old black and white menus from like Dragon Quest 1. So,
oh my god.
They really like, I guess, the nostalgia factor with that, but I couldn't imagine playing that whole game with no voice acting. Like, it looks beautiful and the voice acting really fits at so many points, but
yeah, it sure does.
Weird.
Well, it's cool because the Switch version's gonna add Japanese voice acting, I think.
Yes, and so, dude, it's adding so much stuff.
Are you planning on getting that version?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a little salty, like, that the PS4 and PC versions are just kind of being left out in the dust.
Yeah.
It depends on how long it takes. Like, if it never comes out, that's not okay. But if it comes out eventually, then it's whatever. It's fine. I get they have to sell this new version.
Sure. Yeah, you gotta add something. Yeah, it's cool that it's adding the like Super Nintendo spritey thing. That's kind of neat.
Yeah. Did you see where in the options, there's obviously the orchestrated and not orchestrated soundtrack
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
options. But did you see the one where it's non-battle music option?
Oh, really? What is that?
You can switch the non-battle music, so every music in the game that's not the battle theme, you can switch it from Dragon Quest 11 to Dragon Quest 8.
Oh,
So
wow.
the overworld, the church theme, the town theme, like all Dragon Quest 8.
Oh my god. Dang. I almost want to replay the game with all that because Dragon Quest 8 has the best soundtrack in the series. Like
Yeah. When you have that outfit too, so it'd be like this is the closest you're ever getting to like a 3D remake.
pretty much, yeah. Okay, well, it sounds like we're kind of getting to the end of what we remember from the original Ni no Kuni, so we can kind of just wrap up, I suppose. But like I said, the remaster is coming out soon. I'm really, really excited that that is a new audience gets to experience that, and because I mean, I'm throwing out a lot of parts in the game, but even my memory is fuzzy about when things happen and things like that. But like, yeah, just to wrap up, like how like where does Ni no Kuni stand for you, like amongst like your favorite JRPGs and stuff like that?
Man, I like my gut reaction is like for sure it's a top 5 game. If I were to actually sit down and make my top 5, would it make it? I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely worthy of the conversation. Like it is absolutely that good. It's I think because it was on the PS3, towards the end of the generation, it really got overlooked. Um, but yeah, man, it's like we said earlier. I do wonder how much of it was a time and place type thing of like where JRPGs were at on the PS3 versus where they are now. Like how much would a new player enjoy it versus how much we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But even then, it's a great game for sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like I think I've kind of admitted that to myself a little bit that I'm like I was just so desperate for anything good that like I hold it at such a higher level. So it'll be really interesting like now after we've got like Final Fantasy 15 and Persona 5 and Nier Automata and Dragon Quest 11 like how it stacks up to those. It'll be really interesting to see how if it still holds up or not. Cool, man. Well, again, I really appreciate you coming on. Plug away. What do you got going on? You streaming? Like, got some new videos coming out? Like, what are you up to these days?
Always working on new vids. Really just focusing on the YouTube channel. I don't really stream that much, but youtube.com/JRPG Central. If you like JRPGs, if you want to watch JRPG content, head over there and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at JRPG Central, Instagram, Facebook, all that.
Cool. Awesome. Well, guys, that's it. Let us know what you think about Ni no Kuni, the original, and let us know if you're excited for the remaster, if you're going to pick it up, where you're picking it up on. And yeah, looking forward to talking to you guys about that in the comments. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.